Hi guys, in this video we're going to talk about our forestry mulcher, and you can call it forestry head, forestry cutter, forestry mulcher. A lot of guys call it a bunch of different things, but the point is, as you can see in the video, this thing's going to go through just about anything. So before we go into in-depth the operating procedures and kind of the how-to and some tips, let's talk about safety.
Yeah, so this particular machine is very dangerous. Has, as you can see, a fast spinning drum with carbide teeth on the front of it. So in order to rent this machine out, you have to be commercial contractor or construction contractor with $1 million plus in commercial liability. This particular unit we cannot send to homeowners. It's very, very productive machine, but it's also very, very extremely dangerous. The drum spins at a very high rate of speed, as you can see, and it throws debris very far. I want to say almost 120 feet, 150 feet, something like that. So it definitely requires a lot of paying attention, especially with the full cab enclosure kit and all that. It makes it a little bit more difficult to see. So you just need to make sure you're aware of your surroundings and make sure that no one is anywhere near you when you're operating this machine. It is a huge rental piece that we have. A lot of guys, once they rent it and they see what they can do with it, it opens up a lot of different jobs that they take on. So if you have the proper insurance and then you come up with a job where you need one of these, just let us know for sure.
And as you can see in the video here, it really does, you're blind to what you're going through short of what's right in front of your face. And you're very focused. Last year I did about 7 acres on my own property using this machine. And I can tell you that if you're using it, you're so focused on what you're doing and you're gonna look around, but sometimes you'll butt up against a tree because all of a sudden that tree's right there because you're going through thick vegetation like this and you don't see the canopy. As you can see, your vision is limited out the top. You have your window in the back and your windows on the sides, but when you're going through that dark forest on a sunny day, the contrast is so hard to see sometimes other than what's right in front of you. So it's really important that, like in my case on my property, I had my whole family and anyone that came over was aware that, hey, I'm working. I had a little chain section that I actually chained off my trail and put a little sign up, a homemade sign that said, forestry machine in action, do not enter. You always want to clearly mark that it's a job site and that you're not available. If somebody wants to reach you when you're in that unit, you should make sure that they have your cell phone number, and then you shut the machine down, you bury that head in the ground because it'll continue to spin even after you shut the machine down, just to get the head to stop, and then answer your phone call. Don't leave that thing spinning indefinitely, because it's got weights on it, and the bearings, it'll just continue to go, and it weighs. I don't know what it weighs, but it's stupidly heavy, and anything it grabs, it's going in and it's going to chew it up. So
no, absolutely. The two biggest calls we get for these when they're on rent is, hey, I wasn't paying attention and I ripped the hoses off the machine by driving too close to debris, or trying to turn when you're right next to a tree and you push that track in and it comes off of the machine. So just being aware of your surroundings. Not only that, making sure there's no people around, but also, like Mike was saying, making sure you're not running over any debris, hitting any trees, ripping hoses off, that type of thing.
And I would recommend, if you're doing it close to your house or a barn or something, don't mulch toward the building. Mulch either parallel to the building or going away from the building. As Andrew mentioned before, this thing does throw things, and if it grabs a big chunk of wood and hucks it at your building, it could very well put a hole in your building. So don't play games with that. It's nothing to mess with. On the operating side, some tips and tricks for that.
As you can see, this is actually a 60-inch wide cutter head. We do rent ones up to 72 inches wide. But it doesn't cover the full width of the track. So you can see here we take a little bite to the left, little bite to the right, and as you kind of work your way through, you don't just go and drive. That's that's when you can, damage the tracks, damage the hoses, that type of thing. So you just kind of work your way through, come up with a pattern and, cut a little bit here and there to just work your way through. It's a lot of fun to operate, not gonna lie, as you clearing 7 acres, that's a lot of land. You get very familiar with it. But yeah, as you can see in the video, it really mulches through, and it mulches the debris down to manageable pieces at the end, and it just doesn't leave large chunks. It really grinds stuff up very nicely.
Yeah, and I think the most interesting part of operating is that it can take things bigger or down that are bigger than 3 inches, 4 inches, 5 inches. It's actually can be used to take small trees down, right?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've sent these out to where guys would take a 12-inch diameter tree down with it. It's 6 to 9 inches is that sweet spot really for these machines, where it just annihilates the trees. And what's nice is you start at about 6 foot high, and you see that push bar up top. You actually push the top of the tree, and then roll the drum into it to grind off that top of the tree, and then you just grind that stump right down to the ground. And then put the head down on the ground and drive over the tree that you have topped, and it mulches everything right.
And I've seen a couple of tree guys actually when we were building our Hamburg store. I can't remember who the customer was that was down there, but what they did with their head is they actually knocked the tree down. Once it was down, they drove the tracks over top of the tree so that the tree was between the tracks, and then they put that head down and sheared the top of the tree, then rolled the tree over on the other side, sheared the top of the tree so that they had just one nice long stump, and then they just cut it in pieces with a chainsaw and kept the wood, which I thought was pretty smart. As they took those down. And then when I was taking some ash down, he mentioned, making sure you get that crash bar into it. If you're not careful and you're pushing on a dead tree, when you first push with that crash bar, the tree can actually come back towards you. So what you want to do is make sure that you're very careful. Start up higher with that crash bar, push gently, and if you see that thing start to crack and come towards you a little bit, just kind of back up and lift that crash bar up so it doesn't come crashing down onto the top of the cab there.
Yes. Yeah, no, all of our forestry units have the protective cab kits and everything on it. But again, that is, strictly just for safety, purposes. It doesn't absorb everything, and it still has the potential to damage equipment or cause injury as well. Again, this is a very dangerous machine, but as you can see, you can get a lot accomplished with it.
Yeah. Before these units, you'd go out to a job site and you'd have to have, an ambusher or a brush hog, something like that. And you'd have to have a chainsaw, you'd have to have some chains so you could pull the trees after you took them down. And then, you'd be out there all day long. These things are kind of really a one-stop shop, and you can clear, what would you say, maybe an acre or two a day down to dirt, basically?
It varies. It just depends on, what type of brush you're cutting down, how many trees are in there. Because, the larger trees will take a little bit more time than just light brush like in this video. Yeah, you can clear a lot of land with it, right down to the dirt.
And what I really like about our video is we really demonstrate, this is the majority of people's hunting land and, places they're trying to build trails on their property. It's just this thick brush like this. And it's not included in this footage, but there was actually a dead tree in the middle of this.
There was.
And we went ahead and we ground that and pushed it off to the side with the forestry head there. And, it does that kind of stuff just without even thinking about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great piece of equipment, and if
look at that trail though.
Yeah, you could literally just drive a utility vehicle down it afterwards.
Yeah. And what we didn't do is we didn't finish mulch it. So this is actually considered a finish mulcher, correct? Where afterwards you tilt it down and you actually get down to the dirt.
Correct. You can actually take the smaller stumps and everything and grind them right down to where it's.
And I think you do that right here in this video here with the smaller
right
stuff.
At the end.
Right there. Yep. And that stuff is ground right at the front there. Is ground right down to the dirt. So just the more you tilt that thing forward, the more you're going to grab down into the dirt. But you also want to maintain drum speed.
You do. And also, once you get into the dirt, you are taking the risk of damaging the teeth as well by hitting any type of rocks, steel, or anything like that might be in the ground. Those teeth are about $180 a piece.
Yeah.
So they do get expensive, but they're very, very heavy duty. They're hardened steel, and it's, you know, they do last, you know, for sure.
You know, you just mentioned something that we didn't mention in the safety piece that really, you know, a lot of guys forget to walk their land before they use this piece of equipment, and even contractors sometimes can forget to, you know, get out of that machine and really just push your way through that brush and make sure
there's no big rocks. Nothing, you know.
Yeah. Now I will say, when you're going like this and you're lifting it up a little bit, taking that top part down and then bringing it down to the ground, you tend to be able to see while you're driving what's right in front of you. The areas you tend to miss are right by the front right and front left of your tracks. Yes. And sometimes that's where those things are, and so when you take a bite off to the side, you might grab something like that.
That's where helping too, you know, taking that cut to the left and the right as you work your way forward helps somewhat eliminate that, but you always have that potential of if you don't walk the land, knowing what's there and running over something.
Now, how often do guys get the drum stuck?
Not very often, due to the high rate of speed and the weight of the drum. It tends to push through. The only thing that we run into is going through too much swampy land or standing water, because that machine weighs almost 14,000 pounds with the drum. Yeah. So it can get stuck pretty quickly if it's you know, very soft ground or swampy land.
So I had two situations, because I'm not an operator. I had two situations where I was able to stop the drum by accident, not purposely. And I had allowed that rotating drum to get too overloaded, and so it slowed the rotation down too much.
And then tried to take too big of a bite.
Then tried to take too big of a bite, and I pulled a log into it. And when you do that, you can reverse that drum, but I couldn't even reverse out of it. Yeah. And so that's a dangerous situation, because what a lot of people might try to do is have somebody come over and grab onto it and try to pull it while they're doing it. That's not what you do. What you literally have to do is shut the machine down, put the head on the ground, and get your tools out. That's literally what you got to do. And you got to cut that piece of wood, or in my second case, what you got to do is cut the electrical cable that you didn't know was in the forest, that somebody had at some point 100 years ago brought a giant line of electrical wire, and I grabbed onto that. I cut half of it in half, but there was a giant chunk of it that got actually lodged in there and locked up my teeth. So I had to get my bolt cutters out and shut everything down, and spent 2 hours cutting, you know, that wire out of there. So be aware of what's in the woods as much as you possibly can. Sometimes you can't predict that stuff, and you know what? That's why we design them to you know, have break points that are less expensive than the whole unit. So.
Yeah. So with this particular unit, we see a lot of guys, you know, add in like a grapple bucket with this. They'll or even like a root grapple, because they'll go through and they'll you know, dig those teeth from the root grapple right in, and then drive over the trails or clear all that debris out of, you know, the area that they're trying to seed or wherever. So a very common piece and a great add-on is either a root grapple or industrial grapple for this particular machine. You can take that forestry head right off, put the grapple bucket right on there, and, you know, continue working. So other than that, I mean, this is a pretty standalone niche, you know, piece of equipment that we send out, but it's a great tool.
All right, well, we hope you enjoyed our operative tips and you know, kind of the safety instruction on the forestry head. What I would ask is that I know there's a lot of guys that'll watch this video that have more experience than we do, and might have some better tips or really some things to watch out for. So I'd ask you to leave those in the comments. Maybe you've made a video before of you using this particular attachment, or one like it or similar. Go ahead and link that video for us, just so we can make people as aware as possible of our industry, and just grow awareness and knowledge. So with that, have a great day. Appreciate your time.